Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It is the 2025 QualityShot Tennis Awards, and as always, we have a star-studded lineup, not including myself. We have Cam, Christian, and Amy. Thanks so much for being on. Cannot wait to get stuck into this, and you're all fan favorites of the channel, so I know people are going to be really excited watching this as well. We've got our categories and our awards to hand out. Before we do get into it, though, Cam, Christian, Amy, how are you all doing?
Good.
I'm doing great.
Doing well. Happy to be back on Quality Shot Tennis. Sorry.
It's all good. There's like varying degrees of excitement, but it's okay. The excitement will build up, so it's all
I
good
just
as we
woke
go through
up,
the
so
categories.
I'll get more excited as we go along.
Exactly, it'll build up. It'll build up. Well, we can start off with the men's, and we've got a juicy one to get into straight away, which is best Grand Slam match of the year. So, Cam, I'll throw it to you to wake you up. What did you pick and why?
Alcaraz Sinner French Open. I think it's. You gave me the easy one. It feels like, yeah. I mean, 2 sets of love, comeback, championship point saved. Probably. I mean, I think watching it at the time, and also, as time goes on, and probably at the French Open as well, with Rafa being so dominant there for so many years, it felt like we hadn't had a great French Open final like that for so long. I think it was maybe the longest French Open final of all time too. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I think that'll be. I kind of felt like it was like the 2008 Wimbledon final, but as time goes on, we'll go, oh, how good was that final? How good was that final? So yeah, that's the one for me.
Okay, Christian, Amy, did you pick the same?
Yes, I did. I picked the same. So many people were probably watching that match and maybe tuned out or went to get something to eat thinking center had it wrapped up. And then as Alcaraz saved the championship points and he was just very light and smiling and like it was just a day at the park, the drama started to build as he mounted his comeback. And then some of the points played just became more and more unbelievable. And to his credit, Sinner hung in there and made it really interesting toward the end. And I do think it'll go down as one of the top 2 greatest.
Wow, yeah, I agree. It was an incredible final, match point save, drama, quality as well. Christian, did you pick the same, and
I
and
did.
why as well? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like this was a clear match of the year winner on the men's side by far. And like Amy said, I think it's a part that doesn't get talked about enough. Of course, we talk about the incredible comeback from Carlos in that fourth set and beyond, but the fifth set was also pretty competitive. And you could argue that Yannick had some looks as well. So it was a true testament to both of them at that point of how well they were playing 5 hours into the match. And I think just how Carlos was also able to elevate his level in that 10-point tiebreak, winning it 10-2 in the way he wanted to. Like forehand, like winner was just the cherry on top. So it was the perfect end to really honestly like the perfect tournament overall at Roland Garros. But we'll get into that a little bit later because I know we have a category talking about tournament of the year. So
Spoiler
I'll
alert.
leave my thoughts there.
But before we do announce this as the best Grand Slam match of the year for the men's, which I think we are going to, are there any honourable mentions? Anything that you guys thought maybe didn't come close, but at least was something that popped in your head as well when you were thinking about it at all, or no?
I think
I
for
got
me, oh, I think for me, I don't think, of course, it's not the same, but I think Medvedev Tien
Yep.
Australian Open was up there. I mean, they've had some really great matches all year. It's probably like top 2 rivalry of the year, of course, under Sinkaras, but that was truly an exceptional match. That's a match I'm going to talk about later on in the list too. I'm giving all my stuff away in this one, so I'll leave it at that. But yeah.
Amy and Cam, did you guys think
Yeah,
of
I
anyone?
have another match that I really like that I'm gonna talk about later, I saved for another category, so I'm not gonna give that away, but I just think that this one was so clearly the winner. We will in other categories, we'll have some debate.
Exactly, we will. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah, no, agreed. So yeah, we can give Alcaraz versus Sinner, that incredible Roland Garros final of 2025. That can be our best Grand Slam match of the year. I think we're all agreed on that. Don't need to add anything. I think you guys have touched upon it as well. The next one, which is probably going to be more hotly contested, is the best ATP match of the year. So best of three match, which is a non-Grand Slam category. Amy, would you like to go first?
Sure. I picked the Canadian Open final, Hatchanoff and Shelton. Such a compelling watch. I didn't know who was going to win. A bit of a contrast in style, a veteran versus a younger, up and coming player, a baseliner versus somebody who's emerging to be more of an all court player. The points were hotly contested. And then in the end, when Shelton broke through and won the match, just the way that Hatchanoff handled it afterwards, the classy runner-up speech, that's a match and a post-match that I won't forget.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I agree. That was an incredible match. Christian, do you want to go?
Yeah, for me, it was right before the Canadian Open, the final of the DC City Open between Alex de Minaur and Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Just an incredible match. Foki was going for his elusive maiden title, and he had it on. He really had it. He was up, I believe, 5-2 in the deciding set, and he had, I think, 3 championship points at 5-4. But one thing about Alex de Minaur, he just never quits. And I was so impressed by how he fought back. And, Faulkner is not, he did definitely waver, I feel, a little bit in the third set, but I still think the quality was high in the third set. But as far as the drama and just absolute spectacle that match was, I feel like it's hard to top as far as things that we've seen this year. It was just really quite a watch for me.
Yeah, it was. And it's one of those questions now that pops into lots of people's brains, I'm sure, which is Alejandro Fokina ever going to win a title now? Because he's become so close. He's had so much heartbreak in finals. And, I don't know if we'll touch upon Zverev, but, everyone talks about Zverev and will he ever win a Grand Slam? And I feel like this is in that kind of category because he's had so many near misses. But surely he's too good a player not to win a single ATP title, considering how he's been ranked as well. It's a very strange scenario to be in. But yeah, I think for him, a lot of it's mental, but that was a great final as well, as was the Canadian Open final. Cam, what was your pick?
Yeah, I found so hard to pick. That didn't feel like an obvious one because automatically I went to Sincaraz and I'm like, there wasn't any like 3-set Sinner Alcaraz epic this year. So I've gone 2 of my favorite players with de Minaur Fonseca in Miami. It wasn't like I rewatched a little bit of it. It wasn't great quality, but like the atmosphere of the crowd with Fonseca getting the Miami crowd, which I think. I was surprised, maybe not being from America, it was a little surprising seeing how like one-sided they were. Even in the Tien match earlier with Fonseca Tien, it was like 50-50. It was electric. It was physical. de Minaur, sweating it out there. I think it went for a while as well. So yeah, that's the one I picked because I don't know. I just couldn't. There was no obvious one for me. And we've all got different answers. So at the moment, so yeah, I'm going that one. That one was really. I remember watching it at the time and just being like, this feels intense for a third round. It felt way bigger than a third round.
Yeah, that was also a good one. And it's crazy the support that Fonseca has, I think, and it definitely helps him. I think he's one of those players that he channels that support that he gets. And I think similar to Ayala on the women's side, with the Brazilians and now with the Filipino fans, they're all over the place. They really come out in numbers, and it's incredible the atmosphere that they create. So, I mean, he's been a revelation not just in his game, but I think in terms of his support as well. So, yeah, it's incredible, right? That you just said that he played an American Tien in America, and it was 50-50, which is crazy. I know Miami has a lot of Hispanic population as well, and I'm sure there's a lot of Brazilians that are there, but that's still pretty crazy to think about. I actually went for a different one as well. Might be recency bias. but I actually picked, I don't know if it quite counts because Davis Cup, but I picked Kaboli versus Bergs in the semi-final, which was that crazy tiebreaker, which was 17-15 in the tiebreaker. And I think, I don't know how many people might have watched it because obviously post ATP finals, but I mean, that was an incredible match. Maybe the quality wasn't the highest as some of the other matches that you guys have mentioned, but I thought in terms of drama, it really delivered. And I think the heartbreak that Zizi Bergs had as well, he really felt it. And of course, then Italy went on to win the Davis Cup. So in hindsight as well, had that significance. I also put, which again, I think it's more to do with the significance of the comeback, Djokovic Musetti in the Athens final. Again, quality maybe not super high, but I think Musetti, there's a lot on the line. I mean, I know he eventually made the ATP finals anyway, and Djokovic pulled out, but maybe if Djokovic doesn't play that grueling final, he actually does play the ATP finals. Musetti's fighting for his life there as well. He's up, and I thought that had the hallmarks of a very good match as well. But I'm happy to defer to one of your picks. Does anyone want to change their answer to another pick, or are they going to stick firm?
When you brought up Djokovic, so that's Djokovic Hurkacz, I didn't even think of at Geneva final. That was like
title,
5-7-7, 5-7-6 or something. I'm like, I should have gone with that one. So I'll pick that one instead. But I still think the other ones have maybe a bit more weight to them, being well, maybe the 1,500 finals are a little bit more important for the rankings, for especially those guys that were playing for them.
Christian's pick, I remember all these matches. There was a point where the ball lands on the line. It was kind of a lobby shot, and it was so close to being out. And if it's out, Davidovich Fokina wins. It's just crazy. So I really like that match too. I'd be willing to switch my vote, although given the weight of what Shelton accomplished, I don't know. It's hard to pull me off of that, but I can be talked into it.
It's funny you say that, Amy, because I was actually thinking of switching my vote to the Shelton Hatchinoff match. Because I mean, like you said, I mean, even aside from how high quality the match was and how tight it was from the beginning to the end, just what Ben accomplished, winning his first 1,000 title. And I know we're focusing on the match, but his run to the title in itself was very impressive. Thinking back to some match wins he got, like Nakashima, Kaboli as well. So to culminate to that final as well, still playing a great final, with that in mind, I think I honestly could switch to that one. But yeah, again, all great picks.
You guys can just switch around, and then we can one. No, I'm happy to go with the Shelton Hatchinov Canadian Open final, because I think one of the things I was thinking about as you guys were discussing was actually around how Shelton. So there's been a lot of comments, I think, in the past around how he was only doing it at Grand Slams, and he really stepped up to the occasion, but he wasn't really doing it at 250s, 500s, 1000s, and he wasn't able to have that consistent level. And I think we've seen more of that this year, and that I think that win for him is quite a big one actually against Hatcher. It was a tight final as well. I think that will put him in good stead going into 2026. I know he had the shoulder injury as well, but ATP finals, and it's been a big year for him. I think he'll probably say so himself. So happy to go with that. Sorry, Cam. We'll go with Shelton.
I'm a massive Shelton fan. I love that. I love that one as well. I mean, Demonor, Shelton, both of them are great picks. So
perfect. So we'll go with that. We'll go with the Canadian Open final for our non-Grand Slam match of the year. Best tournament. And I think, Christian, we can probably go to you first, because I think you mentioned your favorite tournament already.
I did, and that was Roland Garros. I mean, obviously, we can think back to the epic Sincaras final, but for me, I think this was my favorite tournament even before that, because just even focusing on the men's side, there were so many excellent matches. We witnessed so many 2-sets-to-love comeback matches early on in that tournament too. Just thinking back to, I think Bublik got one over de Minaur, and then there's just others. as well as Monfils. He had a great match against Draper, I believe. So just really high quality matches even before we got to the latter end of the tournament. But also things like, I think the Djokovic Sinner match was also pretty underrated. Their semifinal at Roland Garros, even though it was straight sets. And then I really enjoyed TNT's coverage of the tournament, I must say. I think they did a great job. I think it was at least I'm speaking from the American perspective. I don't know if TNT was in the UK or not, but normally it was Tennis Channel and NBC, but they switched to TNT. But that, and then of course, I think the Rafa ceremony to kick it off, really, it was a great start to the tournament. And it set the tone for one of the best Roland Garroses that we've had in a long time, I'd say.
Yeah, no, definitely a very good tournament. Amy, what was your pick?
My pick was the US Open because it starts with this mixed doubles that nobody knows how it's going to go. There's a lot of arguing, discussion, and then it turns out to be an absolute smash hit. Everybody's dialed in. It was like the perfect appetizer to the tournament. Then we get Medvedev Bonzi in round 1, I believe, or maybe it was round 2. A photographer steps on the court. There's like all this back and forth going on. It was an incredible match. Medvedev's talking to the crowd. I mean, like quintessential US Open New York scene and situation. That was a great match. And there were some other sneaky good matches. Kaboli played Brooksby in a 5-set crazy back and forth ordeal where it was, survival of the fittest. And then just the Alcaraz taking the final in a way that sort of completed the seesaw, like you win one, I win one, you win one, I win one. I just thought it was an incredible extended US Open.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a great tournament. And the mixed doubles is a good point that you make, Amy, because I think, as you say, no one really knew exactly how it would go. Would it be successful? Would it really whet the appetite, as you said? And it did, I think. It was definitely a success. Do there need to be tweaks? Who knows? But I think in terms of a spectacle, it definitely set things up quite nicely. And it seemed that the players really enjoyed it as well, which I think is a big part of that. And of course, for the doubles players, it's perfect because who won it? It was a doubles pairing. So they were also happy in a way and could push forward their own thoughts on it. Cam, what was your tournament?
Yeah, French Open was the one for me as well. Like final aside, yeah, there was sort of, Shelton having a bit of a surprising fight against Alcaraz, getting a set. Alcaraz it felt like Alcaraz was battling early as well. It didn't feel like he was having it as easy. I mean, at the US, he was cruising because he was on another level throughout the tournament. But then, sort of, Sinner was, first slam back after the 3 months, and then sort of, how's he going to go in the best of 5? Is he going to be fit? Like, there was just so many things going on. And then, Djokovic being competitive against Sinner, which was nice after beating Zverev, when a lot of people keep thinking that he's not going to, be there, but then he keeps getting to the semis and losing to these guys. So it just had it just felt like it just had so much. And I know we have to talk about the women's on a different thing, but spoiler alert for my pick on the women's side, but it just felt like combined, it was also there was just so much going on both sides. There was so much interest on top players doing well on both sides. So yeah, that was the French Open for me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've all gone for Grand Slams as well. I did as well, but we could have picked any tournament, I guess. But it just shows that when you have a Grand Slam that produces a lot of quality, then you as a default will go for that one. But yeah, I was also the same as Cam, you and Christian with Roland Garros. I thought the US Open was also very good. I didn't even think about Wimbledon because even though the final was good, I just didn't think the matches leading up had the quality to warrant a best tournament, even though I was there and doing media there. The Australian Open, the final kind of fell flat, so I didn't really think about that either because of Sinner obviously dominating Zverev in the final. But Roland Garros, I think it's hard to look away from that because of the final. I know we're not just looking at the tournament based on the final, but I think also there are a lot of really good matches, a lot of 5-setters, and even Alcaraz's run. I think I'm just looking now. He only won 2 matches in straight sets, which was Zeppieri and Tommy Paul. But then, as you said, Cam, there were some battles. I mean, sets taken here and there by people like Marijan, Juma, Shelton, Musetti as well, who was playing very good tennis up until that time. And the Sinner Djokovic semi-final was very different to the Wimbledon semi-final. I think Sinner really dominated that. And even though Djokovic didn't manage to take a set off Sinner in that semi-final at Roland Garros, it was a very tight 3-set affair, and the quality was really high, I thought, and the final as well to follow up. So, yeah, I think we can agree on that. Amy, great pick up for the US Open, but our best tournament for 2025 we picked as Roland Garros, which I think is a pretty good pick. This is one that I always like going through, which is best tournament run. And there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure I have a feeling you might pick the same one, but who knows? Amy, do you want to go first?
Yes, I will pick Valentin Vachereau. And in the words of what he texted to a friend prior to entering Shanghai, he said, "You never know when you're going to go on a sick run." And that's what it is. It was a sick run. So to me, this was really, I in my past life, I've covered a lot of sports, football, basketball, baseball. For me, this one really stands out among even other sports as a memorable story. And the way he played, beating Djokovic and then beating his cousin, that was my favorite run.
Yeah, that was an incredible run. Christian, what did you pick?
I picked the same thing, Valentin Vachereau's Shanghai run. Like, as he was continuing, I was like, okay, like this is a really great run. Even aside from him winning the whole thing, I was like, wow, it's one of the stories of the year. But I definitely expected his run to end when he came up against Novak Djokovic. I was like, yeah, Novak's was a little bit physically waning, but I still think he has, the experience factor. And plus, the man had to go through qualifying, and he had some really tough matches in qualifying too. He was close to losing in one of his qualifying matches. So for him to come out of qualifying and again go on such a unbelievable run, a lot of them were 3-set matches against Bublik, Rune, Griekspoor, of course, against his cousin Rinderknecht as well. I was just mainly impressed too by how he was able to stay so physically strong and tough, both physically and mentally, because he had never been in this position before. So for sure, that was my clear pick.
Yeah. Cam, what was yours?
I'll say honorable mention for Menchik in Miami, because I think that gets a little bit forgotten because it was earlier in the year. And I mean, he beating Djokovic, denying him of 100 titles, and a 1,000, and a young player. But yeah, I went the same. I was the same as Christian, just like the Djokovic match. I thought, he had a really good run. We'll remember this semi-final. But Djokovic will prevail. But then, he beats Djokovic in straights. And everybody, Sinner, Alcaraz wasn't there, but, Sinner, he retired physically. Everybody was cramping. Everybody couldn't, play on because of the conditions or the slow courts or whatever it was. And, and then he does it coming through qualies, and it's hard. And being a 1,000, had it been a 500 or 250, we've probably seen that way more, right? So, yeah, it had to be that's the one that stands out the most.
Yeah, 100%. And your honourable mention for Mensik, I think we can touch on that very briefly. So, I mean, he beat Draper, Safiullin, Fils, Fritz, and Djokovic. A lot of tight sets as well. There's only one set that whole run that wasn't 7-6 or 6-4, which is crazy, which was one set against Fils. So he played a lot of really tight sets to get the win. So it was pretty clutch from him. But as you guys picked, and I also picked the same, Valentin Vachereau, I mean, incredible run. And it was record breaking because I think he was ranked 204 in the world, and he's the lowest ranked player ever to win a Masters 1000 title. So, I mean, I think that speaks for itself. And yeah, the wins over Rune and Djokovic, and I think even the final against Rinderknecht, because Rinderknecht is a lot more experienced as I'm sure he was trying to tell him as his cousin, but trying to get into his head in some fun mind games beforehand. But it was a great story because they were practicing, I know, before the final as well, which is great to see. And they also battled, I know, soon after that match as well. And again, Basho came out on top. But it was great to see him back up that result after and actually pick up some good wins post Shanghai to really show that his level, it wasn't just a blip in that tournament. He can pick up that level again. So that was great to see. So happy to pick Valentin Vachereau for our best tournament run of 2025, and deservedly so. And I'm sure he'll be watching and he'll be really happy. We know we gave it to him. Biggest upset. There's a lot probably that we could pick from. I will go to you, Cam, first. What was your biggest upset on the men's side?
Yeah, I found this tough as well because whenever I think about biggest upset, I go, okay, best players, Grand Slams. Sinner and Alcaraz didn't lose, so they lost to each other, and then Alcaraz lost to Djokovic. I couldn't pick any there, and then I was thinking, okay, well, who did Djokovic lose to at the Slams? No one, shockingly. So I went Vachereau defeating Djokovic just because of everything we just mentioned with the ranking wise and more just like the feeling I had going into that match, with this has been good, but Djokovic is like, he's not going to lose this match. There's probably a way bigger upsets that I completely forgot.
Christian, do you want to go?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but the upset for me, I was considering doing Vachereau Djokovic as well because that was a big shock for me. But I ultimately went with Leonard Tien defeating Dino Medvedev at the Australian Open. And Medvedev didn't play that great in his opening round match. He was pushed to 5 sets against a rather lower ranked player, but you would still expect him to elevate his level, raise his level. And we had heard about Leonard Tien, of course, he made the ATP Next Gen finals leading into in 2025, but I still thought he lacked, the experience and to beat someone like Medvedev, who's really like a grinder, let alone best of 5 sets. So even when he went up 2 sets to love, I knew that Medvedev had a strong shot at coming back, which he did. He leveled it at 2 sets apiece. And I thought the match was his because he won the 4th set 6-1. So I thought, okay, he's kind of going to run away with the 5th set maybe. But Leonard just showed us that he really has that dog in him. Like he just truly never gives up. And for him to win the fashion that he did, winning it in a match tiebreak, I believe, against someone like Dino Medvedev, who at that point was a really like great pressure player, it was quite something. And it was kind of a precursor to both Medvedev's kind of slam struggles for 2025 and Tien's breakthrough 2025 season.
Yeah, both really good picks. Amy, what did you go for?
I have a winner, and then I have such a close second. My winner is Fonseca over Rublev at the Australian Open. It seems like a long, long time ago. It was a straight set win with 2 tiebreakers, and it was such a thrilling match to see this guy play and to see his showmanship and his forehand and to see how he handled those breakers against Rublev. I thought that was really, and Rublev is, such an excellent player on hard courts and in slams and just a stalwart. My close second was Minchik over Djokovic in the Miami Open final, which has been discussed. Minchik actually tried to withdraw from the tournament, but wasn't able to do so before the tournament even started, before the main draw started. And then he ends up winning the thing. And Novak has a home in Miami. I just thought that at the start of the match, I thought this kid's about to learn. He's about to get taught a lesson. And then for him to win the title that way, it was a pretty big upset.
Yeah, agreed. That was also a very good, very good pick. And I think the Fonseca Rublev match was a big shock, and I think it was maybe not a big shock to quite a few fans because there's been a lot of hype around him. But I think it was almost his breakout moment where he really stood up and said, "Look, I'm here, and I can beat the top players, and I'm definitely a force to be reckoned with." And he's still got a lot of room to grow and to mature. But I think that was a real eye-opening moment probably for a lot of people, especially in round one as well. And the first slam of the year was pretty incredible to see. So I had that as one of them, and I also had Tien versus Medvedev as well. I thought that was incredible match, and just yeah, I think they had a couple of great battles as well after that throughout the whole year, and it's clearly a matchup that Medvedev said that's going to be really tough, and I think he said that if Tien can improve on his serve, he's going to be difficult for anyone on tour because of the way that he plays and his ability. I also had something else of note, which was, and I don't know whether it's really going to compete with the other picks, but Tsitsipas versus Gigante in Roland Garros at round two, which I thought was a pretty big upset. I don't know if a lot of people watching that match would have known who he was. To beat Tsitsipas the way that he did. I know Tsitsipas has had a lot of issues throughout the whole year with his body. I mean, he changed rackets and changed back. I mean, I think he's clearly struggling quite a bit to find form. So maybe we can just say, okay, hasn't been a great year. And that's why that was part of the reason. Maybe his level wasn't quite up to scratch, but that was a great win for the Italian, who, as I said, isn't really well known on tour compared to a lot of other players. I'm happy to go with Fonseca Rublev just because of the breakthrough moment and as our biggest upset of the year. So Amy, put one in the books for you.
Okay.
And that's the Australian Open round one. And Fonseca Rublev. But yeah, Tien Medvedev, I think definitely a honorable mention. And yeah, Cam, I think your pick was also good as well. But sorry, I have to go for this one, I think, this time. Okay, we've got one which is a bit more lighthearted coming up, which is funniest moment of the year. That can be on court, off court, whatever, on the men's side. Christian, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go. For me, this guy had a lot of, he's has a lot of moments on tour. But I think in particular his whole beef with Corentin Moutet, especially towards the end of the year and at the Paris Masters, was up there for me. And all started in Phoenix, where they had a really ugly moment that the umpire had to sort of diffuse. And it continued in Paris. And just him saying, I had to punish him after beating him was really quite something. It's the most Bublik thing. And he's like, oh, he spoke too much, and he said that he'll do it. He said he'll do everything to send me home, and he said something like, "It's nice he lives in Paris already, so he doesn't have to go too far." Like, it's just such a moment, really, for me.
Yeah, that's a very heated rivalry, isn't it? That Bublik Moutet matchup for sure. Amy, what was your pick?
I mentioned it earlier. It was when in the Medvedev Bonzi match, Bonzi has match point, and Medvedev's just out of sorts, not playing well. And for some reason, a photographer walks on the court. This is a grand slam, folks. And it just, Medvedev seizes on that moment, and it derails everything. Bonzi ends up losing the set, and they have to play another set. And just when he was down and out, he gathers himself. And this is through a lot of primo drama from Medvedev. And he gathers himself and wins the match. That was a funny moment. I showed my kids. They laughed. The cutaways to the crowd. That was classic.
Yeah, that was definitely a moment. And Medvedev's had a lot of moments, I think, this year, to be fair. Good, bad, funny. He's a real character. Cam, what was your pick?
Yeah, I always find it hard to pick this one because I go back and I'm like, oh, what was funny? And then the only thing those two were hilarious at times, but the Zverev's speech when he lost to Fritz, I think it was in Stuttgart, and he was like, I don't want to see you. I don't want you to come to Germany.
Yeah.
Like, and we all know the Fritz Zverev rivalry, how one-sided it's been over the last 2 years. And like Zverev just saying, and it's funny because you listen to him and you're going, oh, this is funny. And then you go, wait, I think he's serious. Like, it just had that he was really saying to Fritz, don't ever come back here. I don't want to go away. Don't. He used a lot more words than that, but yeah, I thought, oh, that's like, oh, he said exactly what we know that's how you feel. And then obviously, I think didn't they play the Labour Cup after that, so he didn't get any, lost again. So yeah, that was the only one I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, that was. Yeah, Zverev has also said about, of course, the sinner Alcaraz, making the courts just for them, and then lost her internationally the next match. So
Yep.
he's also someone that maybe has a moment or two. I actually went for a Medvedev moment like you, Amy, but a different one, and it was actually after his win. It was a 5-setter against Samrej, actually, in the Australian Open. And after he said, and I quote, "If he plays like this every match, life can be good, money, girls, casino." And then Djokovic quoted it in the same tournament as well. So that I thought was a really funny moment. And the whole speech that he gave, because they were asking about the up and coming players coming through, and he just, he does make me laugh. Medvedev is definitely a big character on tour, but I don't think we need to pick one specific one, to be fair, for this moment. So unless you guys have a really strongly want one moment, then I think we can say they're all good enough moments for funniest moment of
Put down in the
year.
comments to people watching later. What was the funniest moment for you?
Let the comments decide.
Exactly.
Let the comments decide. That's it.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Let the comments decide. And then actually that's true. And then we can just pick based on that. That's all good. I'm happy for that. Okay, on to most shocking moment, which some of these were pretty shocking, to be honest, but also funny. And interestingly, I did actually have Medvedev's meltdown against Bonzi at the US Open as a shocking moment, but that's now in the funniest moments category, so we can push that to one side. What did you go for, Cam?
Yeah, again, it was hard to think all the way back to the start of the year, but I went with Runa's Achilles. That was just so sad. Like, it was just so sad. And I think we're all, for the most part, like just waiting for him to challenge Sinner and Alcaraz, or go and and be the big three guy, or whatever he becomes. And he's so we all know he's going to hopefully do something, and then that just cuts him down, and who knows when he comes back. So that was the most shocking for me, and I know it was pretty recently too. So yeah, that one made me sad out of anything. Shocking and then sad for Runa.
Yeah, 100%. Pretty similar as well to, I think, when Zverev he did his ankle, I think, wasn't it, really badly against Nadal at the French Open 2022, if memory serves it correctly, in the semi-finals. That was also one of those moments where you think, oh, this looks really bad. And he was out for a while. So it's great to see him on social media, obviously working hard, and he's clearly taking it seriously. I think he's taking it pretty well, considering, and he seems in high spirits. So who knows what's going on in the background, but it seems that he's really taking it in his stride, and he's very.
I think he called it a wake-up call too.
Yeah,
which is interesting to see how he comes back and that. So
yeah, no one wants to get injured, but also it gives him some time to mentally figure out some things, probably as well. Also, how he wants to play. What does he want to do in terms of his team? Because that's been changing left, right, and center as well. And it probably gives him some time to slow down and actually really approach his comeback in a more calculated way, rather than the hustle and bustle of the tour and constantly having to move and kind of, go at a really fast pace. So hopefully, it's never good to get injured, of course, but maybe the time off will help from the mental aspect anyway, hopefully. But we'll see. Amy, what did you pick?
I picked the moment where Rinderknech beats Medvedev in the Shanghai semifinal to send Rinderknech to the final to play Vachereau, his cousin. And I got to give an assist to the photographers and the directors on the world feed there, because what happened was Medvedev didn't like something. He was mad. And Rinderknech was in shock, and Vachereau was in the stands. And the way that the cameraman pushed in on Rinderknech's face, and then they cut to Medvedev arguing with the chair umpire, and then they pulled back to Vachereau, who comes down to the court. It was a big shock that these two cousins were going to play in the final. And it was like, I forget the Italian director who directed Challengers, the movie. It was like a scene, that guy would have directed. And I just remember being really shocked that this storyline happened.
Yeah, that was an incredible moment. Two cousins in a final, and just the emotion from both of them as well was great to see. And of course, Medvedev ever present in these moments. So great to
Right.
see him there as well.
Shocking, upsetting, funny. Yeah.
Christian, what was your moment?
So initially, I did have the Medvedev Bonzi outburst from the U.S. Open, but thinking back to maybe another shocking moment, I'm going to mention him since I didn't have him mentioned in other categories. But I'll talk about Terence Akman's run to the Cincy semifinals. I feel like it's been overshadowed, of course, by Bachereau's Shanghai win, but still, he deserves some credit for that incredible run. And then also like just his match against Runa, the way he was hitting some of his forehands, like I was truly shocked at the pace coming from him on that wing. And truly just even his loss against Yannick Sinner, he pushed Yannick pretty good in that opening set where it was brought to a breaker. So I just want to give him a nod there.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good one as well. I've gone more along the lines of what Cam said, and I think the most shocking moment, it could be because I was there as well, but it was when Dimitrov got injured against Sinner when he was 2 sets to
Yeah.
love up. And the
Yeah.
level that he was playing, I don't think I've seen him play that level maybe ever. Honestly, the way that he was playing was just incredible, especially off the one-hander. He was serving 140 mile per hour plus consistently. Sinner just didn't know what to do, to be honest with you. And look, who knows what would have happened if the match carried on, but he was not able to problem solve at any point up until the injury. And Dimitrov was just playing an incredible level. And then just the unfortunate injury of the pec injury, it was just crazy to happen. Like the timing of it was just so unfortunate. So yeah, that was for me like a really big like shock, I think, at the time. And it's a shame because he was playing some incredible tennis, and you just don't normally see that. And that's why I think it shocked me so much. Someone playing at that level, and then suddenly they get injured, and the circumstances. And obviously, we got an incredible final, Sin Alcaraz, but it was one of those what could have been potentially for him. But yeah. Which one do you want to go for then, guys?
I'll
I
change
like
to
yours.
Yeah, I'm the same. Yeah,
I like that one.
that
I
was shocking
sold it.
twice too. It was shocking the result
Yeah,
at the start, and then it was shocking how it ended.
Yeah.
Like it was the
It kind of came out of
double
nowhere.
shock. Yeah.
it did. Yeah, it really did. I'm glad. Yes, convinced. Yeah, I'm great to see him back on tour, and I know he had to retire recently or pull out of a match recently, but hopefully he'll be back to his best come 2026, and he'll have a little Indian summer, which is always great for players of that era. Biggest off-court moment or event that happened on the men's side. Amy, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think Saudi Arabia getting a Masters, the announcement that they're going to get a Masters 1000 as early as 2028, and the fact that Australia, at least for the time being, seems to have blocked off or warded off that this new Masters 1000 will interfere with the Australian run. We don't know that for sure, but that seems to be the way that it's looking. It's a big deal when a Masters 1000 is added.
Yeah, definitely. I agreed because with the schedule, there's just so much talk around the schedule, and is it too packed? Is it not packed enough? I don't think anyone's saying it's not packed enough, but maybe they're saying that it's fine and it is perfect. 2-week Masters, there's just so much. I know a lot of us have talked about this as well in a lot of depth. We could talk about it for a long time, but yeah, definitely a big moment. Christian, what was yours?
I think I'll go with Yannick Sinner's suspension. I believe he was suspended for around 3 months. It was just, I guess I knew that WADA, I believe it was WADA, had like done an appeal, but I really wasn't sure what would come of that. So for I guess that to happen, I mean, he didn't end up missing any majors, but still it's a big thing when he was world number one at the time. He's forced to miss some pretty big 1,000 events, and I do think ultimately it played a role in preventing him from ending as year-end world number one. So, yeah, I went with that one.
Yeah, that's a good one, Cam.
Yeah, I went with that as well. The Sinner suspension. It was. I know it was. What was it? Cincinnati last year when it first came to light, and it just felt. I mean, a lot of players having their say, and it was just ongoing and ongoing. And then having it finally, and then even now, but still, it was like it should have been longer. It should have been, 2 years, 4 years, 6 months. You should have missed out on Slab. Like it just had like the 3 months. The result was still like controversial. A big moment as well. But it was nice. It was, for me personally, it was nice that it was at least concluded, so we didn't have it drag on. Because I think Sinner was willing to fight, and that would have maybe kept it going all year. But to have it sort of kind of like end abruptly when we all thought, oh, this is going to be a long fight off court and we have to talk about this for months and months, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, he's not playing, he's in Doha, and now he has to leave because he's suspended, and we'll see him in Rome. And it was just kind of like, oh, that was an abrupt end to it. And then we would have been robbed of the Sinkeraz French Open Wimbledon finals had he been banned longer anyway. So, I think that felt like the biggest moment for me off court.
Yeah, no, I also had that as well because it did get dragged out for quite a while. And I think it was a huge moment in the year for all the men, I think, as well. And there was lots of differing opinions around, should it have been shorter? Should it have been no ban? Should it have been longer? Was it the right amount? And a lot of players came out to talk about that as well. I know Djokovic had his say as well. Even recently was talking about it in an interview. So it's clearly quite a big, it was a very big moment off court because he was the world number one at the time. And I'm pretty sure we would have talked about this probably on the awards last year because it happened obviously in Cincinnati. And it just shows how long it dragged out that we're talking about it now as well. But Amy as well, that's a really good point on the schedule. And I think if there's an award for most controversial topic, the schedule will probably get that because that's been a really big one, to be honest with you, as well. But I think we can give Yannick Sinner's ban the biggest off-court moment of the year. And I don't think he'll care about getting that, to be honest. Probably won't even be listening. But he gets it anyway. Maybe we'll get a different award.
What are you talking about? He'll comment down below. He's got a YouTube channel.
He does, actually, doesn't he? Yeah, he does. It's pretty good as well, I have to say. They're all getting into it. They're stealing all our viewers. No, it's all good. All good. Most improved player. This is one that I think there's a lot of people that could contest this. Amy, would you like to go first?
Sure. I picked Bublik. He's finally living up to his potential. The previous 2 years, I think he finished 33, 32. This year, he finished 11. He was an alternate at the tour finals. So something clicked for that guy. He just decided he was going to get some balance and not take himself, I don't know, it didn't seem like he was taking himself so seriously, but apparently he was, and he was acting out as a result. And now he seems in a good headspace and seems to be able to take advantage of all his gifts.
Yeah, incredibly talented player as well. So great to see him starting to really dig into that potential, as you said, because I think he's always been a player that's been very exciting to watch. And there's always clips in highlight reels of him with the underarm serves and the drop shots and everything else. But to see him actually string together consistent results, and he beat, for example, Draper on clay at Roland Garros. I mean, would you have thought that at the start of the year if someone said to you that he's going to beat Draper on clay? I don't think I wouldn't have picked that. So I think that was, for example, one of the wins that really showed a great improvement in his game. Cam, who did you pick?
Yep, Bublik as well. I think he was 70 in the world, like in April, or like pre-French Open, maybe something like. It was way down at some point. It was way down the rankings, and yeah, beating Draper, winning. I think after Wimbledon he won 2. It was weird because he beats Sinner in Halle, then he goes to Wimbledon, loses first round. When you're like, oh wow, well, I thought everyone picked. I think everyone picked him semi-final run. He's going to do this. No, and then he wins 2 clay titles, and you're like, wait, how'd that happen? And then he, is this close to making the ATP finals. He's an alternate, and he loses to a lucky loser in the last tournament of the year in Metz, and you're like, okay, well, that's Bublik, and yeah, but it was nice to see him, like fulfill his potential, and I know it's like having Nick Kyrgios. Sort of, and Bublik have, like, a lot of people kind of compare the two, maybe because of the underarm serves and going through the roller coaster of Nick Kyrgios over the last sort of 10 years as an Australian. It's sort of like keeping an eye on Bublik as like, oh, can he do what maybe Kyrgios couldn't, break that top 10 and do all those things? And yeah, it seems like this year it definitely has, or the last 6 months has definitely been able to get into that, into that conversation as top 10. Yeah,
100%. Christian?
I was very, very close to going with Alexander Bublik as well, but I went with Felix Auger-Aliassime. I mean, he has had, peaks before, like I think 2022. He had a great season, but at the start of this year, he was almost around outside top 30, and he stayed around that range, even though he did have some success in the early indoor swing. Of course, he loves the indoor conditions, but he struggled for a little bit after that, and he was around the 30 range ahead of the US Open, and that was really the tournament that changed everything for him. Thinking back to that 3rd round win over Alexander Zverev, we saw him kind of transform. It seemed like to me like a different player, just being more aggressive, especially off that forehand wing. And he continued that mindset, that new renewed mindset throughout the end of the year. Sorry, there's a plane flying by. But he continued that, and now he's at his career high of number 5 in the world, which beats his previous career high of number 6. So a great banner season for Felix, but I can concede to Bublik for sure. I think that's a great pick.
You're going to have to, because we're at number 2 to 4.
I know.
The plane was great timing, though. You're talking about him soaring through the rankings, and the plane also soared through your house.
Yeah.
Off your house. Perfect.
Good timing.
Symbolic. No, I also had Bublik as one of my picks. I also had Leonard Tien and Jakub Mensik noted down as well, but I think Bublik is definitely a very solid pick. And yeah, Christian, Felix Auger-Aliassime also an incredible end to the season, and we know that he's great indoors, but I think the fact that he was able to push Sinner in that Paris Masters final and really show a great level, especially in the first set of the ATP finals against Sinner as well, when I know he then picked up an injury, just shows, I think, how he's come on leaps and bounds. And I think if he can then capitalize on that, that's the biggest thing, because as he mentioned, he had a great season in 2022, but just wasn't able to then kick on. So hopefully he does. And he's at, I think, a career high right of number 5 in the world. So yeah, he's probably going to have a lot of points to defend. But at the end of the day, he also has a lot of points that he doesn't have to defend on non-indoor tournaments. So I'm sure he'll be happy going into Australian Open, where he's also had some success, and he should play well on those faster hard courts as well. So looking forward to his season. But Alexander Bublik will get our most improved player, rightly so, of 2025. Then comes a category which no player wants to listen to, but I do like going through this, I have to say. And that is most disappointing player of the year. So if you think you might be that player, then don't listen in. But Cam, who do you pick?
Oh, I'm okay. He might be listening in. Tsitsipas. He's I think we all. I mean, he had the coaching dramas. I thought as soon as he got Gore on, I thought, yes, okay, this could work. He gets him for the grass. He didn't have a great clay season compared to the usual. And maybe I won't. I don't want to give anyone else's picks away, but it felt like a lot of people in that generation, his generation, this year were disappointing, and they had a bit of a backslide. But I think
feel free to call them all out. That's fine.
No.
Get everyone to hate you.
No. I don't need that. Tsitsipas he dropped down the rankings. He just never really recovered. I know he had injuries. He had off-court stuff going on. He was. I don't know if I expected him to do anything crazy, but he didn't do as much as I thought he would. I didn't think. I thought he'd be better this year.
Yeah, that's fair. Christian.
Yeah, I actually uploaded my top 10 most disappointing ATP players video today, and
that's brave.
And stuff.
Boy, you picked 10 of them. Wow.
That must be doing really well. That's a great video idea, which I might have to steal.
I know. I had to do a disclaimer, being like, "Listen, I'm not trying to be hateful. Like, I understand stuff happens, but for educational purposes." But my number one for that video was also Stefano Tsitsipas. I mean, 2024 wasn't the best season for him, but he still finished inside the top 15, finished that season 11th, but now he's outside the top 30. And as Cam mentioned, he has had a bevy of issues from injury and off-court things. But just thinking back to when he won Dubai, and we thought, okay, he had the racket change, and he's going to be back to contend for bigger titles and big wins, but it just never happened. And I don't think he earned a single top 20 win all season, which is quite a jarring stat in itself. So I'll say him.
Yeah, that's fair. Amy?
I also had Tsitsipas. I'd forgotten about the racket changes. Yes. And the coaching changes. And I was watching some video of Tsitsipas practicing at Roland Garros after he lost. He got on the practice courts across the street at the facility Jambon where they practice, and he was working on his backhand returns. I just think that I was pretty surprised at how he's still working on the basics of what to do with that shot. And he's also undecided on the role of his father, Apostolos, in his professional life. And then at one point I saw him and Badosa at a red carpet event, and they seemed so happy, and they were talking about getting married, and then they broke up. So it was so tumultuous for him. And this was a guy who was 3 in the world, Grand Slam finalist, and he's just going through a very rough phase right now.
Yeah, he is, I think, and I don't need to say anything, so I can just say neutral because you've all picked Tsitsipas. Now I'll give my pick as well, but Tsitsipas. Look, I mean, I spoke to him at Wimbledon actually, and I asked him about the racket specifically, and he was saying, I want something that's going to give me a bit more pop, and I think I don't want to go too much into the specifics because he wasn't going to give it away anyway. But essentially, he went for, I think, the Babolat Pure Aero 98, which is the same racket that Carlos uses, and he almost uses like a stock model. He just modified it slightly. And a lot of players have been testing out. Bublik, for example, uses a blacked out racket, and that is also that racket, and it's quite popular on tour. So he went from a blade, which is like very soft, it's control oriented. And it's essentially, he was using like a board. So he wanted something that would give him more spin, and he seemed to be playing well with it. So I was like, okay, let's ask him about it. But then weirdly, he just went back to the blade. I think it was post Wimbledon at some point. I don't know why, or whether it was a different racket altogether. But it just seems like he's had a very unstable season, whether it's racket, whether it's on court, off court. He just hasn't been able to find anything steady this year, and I think that's clearly been an issue for him. So hopefully he can sort it out in 2026, whether that's coaching, the racket. I mean, I won't talk about his love life, but hopefully he's happy and happy and healthy, and that's the biggest thing. I know also Goran came out and talked about his physicality and his issues with his back, for example, which continually plays up, and that seems to be an ongoing issue which he doesn't seem to be able to sort. I know there was an interview where he was talking about it really affecting him, and he actually almost hinted as if it was a long-term issue which he wasn't sure would ever recover. And that's not a great thing to hear from someone like him who's in the past been battling and looking for Grand Slams. So I'm hoping he comes back into contention, but as you mentioned, Amy, it's not great to see him on the practice court looking like he's not really confident in some of the basic facets of the game right now, but hopefully compete it together. Someone that I noted down, and he also has had injury troubles, but he started working with Ivan Lendl this year at some point, and that was Hubert Hurkacz, and he went from 16 in the world to 73 now in the world. And if you think that people at some point were talking about him maybe challenging at Wimbledon because of the way that he serves and volleys, and yes, he does have a limited game to a degree, but he was battling for Moss 1000 tournaments and also making quarters of slams, semis of slams. So I think he's a player that's got a lot of talent, but has gone on the radar maybe because he's not as vocal as a Tsitsipas and not in the headlines as much. But yeah, happy to go with Tsitsipas because I think he is clearly a high-profile player that I think when we say most disappointing player, players, if they're listening, they can think of it more as we expect you to do so much better because we believe that you have the quality, right? That's what it is. So we'll take it as that. But unfortunately, Tsitsipas gets our most disappointing player of the year for 2025, and hopefully he doesn't get it for next year and go back to back because this is an award you don't want to go back to back for. Best young player of the year. A lot of people that we could talk about, I'm sure. Amy, would you like to go first?
Yeah, this is another one that's just like 1 and 2 because if you follow me on X, you know that I've been beating the drum of Lerner Tien and give this kid respect and how he ended the year. He won his first ATP title, but Fonseca is better than him in just about every category, just slightly. Fonseca won a couple of titles. He's ranked a couple of notches higher. He's just taken the tennis world by the throat. So and the hype around him and the way that his team has managed his schedule is really great, where Tien falls just below the radar. So it's 1 and 2, but I have to go with Fonseca.
Yeah, I mean, those are both really good picks. Leonard Tien went from 122 in the world to 28 in the world this year. Fonseca went from 145 to 24, so a slightly bigger gap or gain for Fonseca, and of course ranked slightly higher as well. And both have had incredible years. Christian, who do you pick?
Yeah, Amy really echoed my exact sentiments about both Lerner and Joao and how, Joao's Lerner's had a great 2025 season, but simply right now, at least, Joao is better. But I did actually go with Jakub Męžík as best young player. He is still young. He's 20 years old. And we mentioned, of course, earlier how he had that incredible run to the Miami title. He didn't have quite the best season after Miami. I mean, he had another plane flying by, sorry. He had some few good results, like making the quarterfinals, I believe, of Madrid. He did have a disappointing slam season, I'd say, but still, I think that Miami run holds a lot of stock with me. And also, it just comes down to the ranking. He is the best young player, I believe, by ranking. He is ranked above Fonseca and Tien right now, so that's ultimately why I went with him for this category.
Yeah, also a very good pick. You're right. He's ranked 19 in the world and went from 48. He's had a more steady rise, I think you can say, which is probably why he's gone under the radar a little bit as well, and not as much hype around him as Fonseca and maybe Tien as well. Cam, who's your pick?
Yeah, I was going to say honorable mention to Menchik for me because I think the reason why I was going between Tien and Fonseca as well was because I forgot that he was 19. Menchik, he's been around a little bit longer, so it feels like he's like sort of more 22, 23 for me. But I went with Fonseca as well, mainly just because I'm a fan and one of the people that do hype him up a lot. Yeah, I loved watching him in Australia at the start of the year, beating Rublev. He did so well at the slams. Like he played the first full season of slams, and he won every first round, winning a title on clay at the start of the year, and then winning an indoor hardcourt title at the end of the year. I loved that one. I know everyone wanted to see him play Alcaraz at the Laver Cup, but even though he just got that one chance to play a match at the Laver Cup, and one of the off-court or maybe on-court/off-court moments should have been Agassi at the Laver Cup maybe as well, because that was fun to watch. But yeah, I'm a massive Fonseca fan, so I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'm happy to agree with yourself and Amy on João Fonseca. I think he had a very good year, very exciting prospect, and look, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on in 2026, his development moving forward. But honorable mentions definitely to Leonard Tien and Jakub Menchik. And Menchik definitely had the best run out of all three in terms of tournaments because he won the Miami Masters, which is incredible. But I think overall seasons, I think it's fair to give it to Fonseca. Then we come to the juiciest topic, maybe, depending on if you're a Sinner Alcaraz fan, because I think it's going to be one of those two. But best player of the year, who would like to go first? There's silence. Okay, I'm going to pick someone. Christian, you can go. Who's your best player of the year?
I'm going to keep it very PR. I'm just going to go with the player who ended year number one, which is Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, Yannick Sinner, he had an incredible season as well, but I do believe Carlos won more big titles. And then talking more about him, he wasn't able to win the ATP Finals trophy, but he did come pretty close, even though it was straight sets. And then he had that stretch of making like 8-9 straight finals in a row. That was truly incredible. And to consider how he went from Miami, that kind of surprise opening round loss to David Goffin, and how a lot of fans, even of Alcaraz, were saying, oh, how tennis fans are like washed at 21 and stuff like that. So for him to go from that to now like going on that run of making so many consecutive finals there, like it was a big year for him. So I'd say him, Carlos.
Okay. Cam?
Yeah, I mean, this was when I did the Tennis Talk Awards, whatever it was last week. This was the hardest to go because it was like Alcaraz is number one, but Sinner didn't play for 3 months. But Sinner got suspended, so should we reward that? Like it was so many. Everyone has so much to say about it, but I went with Alcaraz mainly because I came down to just when they played each other. I just had to go to head, and Alcaraz beat Sinner more, and that's the only different. We wouldn't. I think if somebody gets injured for 3 months, we don't go, well, they're player of the year because, even though they're away for 3 months and injured and they finished number two, they're player of the year. You go, well, they didn't play. So, whatever the reason. But when Alcaraz played, and 9 finals, I mean, winning the French Open, winning the US Open run, I think most people probably thought in that final would probably be Sinner after what happened at Wimbledon, but then Alcaraz was able to flip it, which was such an impressive thing this year. He'd lose to Sinner, and then he'd learn straight away and just flip it the next match they play. And winning more titles than anybody, and and even at the start of the year when he lost to Djokovic in Australia, the way he lost to Djokovic and was able to flip that, and learn so quickly from like, okay, well, if I'm playing someone who appears to be injured, I need to, I can't just be like, oh, well, here we go, this is going to be easy again. So yeah, I have to go with Alcaraz, I think. And being number one, it's hard to pick against the number one player when as the best player by ranking as well, right? I mean, player of the year, best player. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting one because they've split the slams again this year, like they did last year. And last year, though, Yannick didn't win a single match against Carlos. And this year, it was a different story. Yannick did win twice, and one of them was at Wimbledon in the final. One was at the ATP Finals final as well. But the head-to-head was still 4-2 in favor of Carlos this year. And so, yeah, still leaning towards Carlos in the head-to-head. I've got the stats in front of me before we go to you, Amy, in terms of some other little stats. So Carlos won 89% of his matches, Sinner won 91%, and might be because of 3 months out, of course. 2 Grand Slams each, titles 8 for Alcaraz, 6 for Sinner, and then 17 top 10 wins for Alcaraz, 19 for Sinner. So that's the kind of head-to-head stats. A few tidbits. Amy, what was your pick?
It was really difficult, and I am like really agreeing with what Cam said. What complicated it was Sinner winning the ATP finals. It would have been a really easy call. I did go with Alcaraz because for 2 big reasons. Number one, what Cam said. It's hard to give Player of the Year to a guy who was suspended for whatever the reason. You could say that, well, he didn't play for 3 months and look at the points he accrued and he might have been number 1. Actually, in this day and age, when you don't play for 3 months and you're not recovering from an injury, that's actually a benefit. It can be a big benefit because he was able to work on some things and do some training blocks and come back really fresh. So I just, on principle, I don't want to do that. Number 2, the match of the year, and arguably one of the greatest matches of all time, was won by Alcaraz. So all things being equal, I'm going to give the tip to Alcaraz.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the ATP finals definitely did make it more complicated because before that tournament, I was thinking Alcaraz had the better year. And then when Sinner beat him and then also won the ATP finals, I'm thinking, okay, do I need to rethink this? But I think given the head-to-head, given, like you mentioned, Amy, with the Roland Garros final as well, and Cam, you made a really good point about the fact that Alcaraz learned from a lot of his losses. And I think a prime example, as you mentioned about the Djokovic loss, wasn't even just the injury as well. It was the fact that Djokovic then played him at the US Open and Alcaraz flipped it completely and beat him on another similar surface, a fast hard court or medium fast hard court, so similar conditions, and looked completely different in a positive way. So he's got so many tools to utilize, and I think this year specifically, I really have felt that his shot selection has matured quite a lot year on year, despite the fact that he won 2 slams last year as well. I feel like he has come on leaps and bounds, so that's been a real positive. And Sinner as well, of course, has made improvements, as we've seen with the extra variations. So a rivalry to be continued, TBC. So that's our men's awards wrapped up.